And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough. Yeah.
Hey guys, there is someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. Ted Ford, Lincoln Studio.
All right, Roz, what's going on? I turned the wrong thing down. Welcome to the program. We're loaded up the show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We've got a lot to get to this day in Tennessee sports history. Stat of the day, John Wilkerson, the voice of the Diamond Vols, will join us. Look forward to that. Is Josh Heupel's approach to the Vols a legit concern? All right, Roz, what's going on? I turned the wrong thing down. Welcome to the program. Caleb, I think most people would say yes after last season. The numbers don't bear that out, so we'll dig into that. Also on the program, we'll talk some Tennessee basketball, as you would expect. The Vols lose the Nashville recruit, Justin Hopkins, to Minnesota. That's kind of a weird one. Let's take a look at that. Zach Hare will join us from our friends at Sports Treasures, and we'll talk about a signing that he has going on with some key Vols this upcoming weekend. Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air. City Heating and Air, you've got to check them out. The Vols' biggest star on campus might just be a lady Vol. So here we go. It's Big Show up and rolling. Caleb, how are you, sir?
I am good. How are you doing, Dave?
Never better. I had one of those 3 a.m. just wake up and you had a lead in your head. So you're like, if I don't write it right now, it's not going to happen. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff on offthehooksports.com, and we'll go ahead and get started right now as we get to today's tough question, brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, this was interesting to me, and I saw this morning. And it was a commentary piece from Mark Schlabach and Chris Lowe, who I have tremendous respect for both of those guys. And they both agreed, at least in print, that Tennessee's defining game would be the Alabama game, their season-defining game. Now, let's start with this. They also said they believe that would be Alabama's season-defining game because you can't lose to the Vols 2 in a row and 3 out of 4. I tend to agree with that one. I don't think, and by season defining, here's my definition. You're not going to make the college football playoff. So I think Alabama, if they lose to Tennessee, is not going to make the college football playoff because they're either not good enough or that would be an insurmountable amount of losses. What about you?
I agree. I mean, Alabama can't lose their home game to Tennessee. Like, it's one thing if they, I believe, if they lose another game here or there. I'm trying to think if I think they play Auburn on the road. That's always a dangerous game. The Iron Bowl is just always tough, no matter what. They play Georgia on the road. They play Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, and Auburn all on the road, and Florida State to open the season. Not a bad road schedule when you think about it, but there's still that Georgia game. So if they drop one to Tennessee at home, then they got to run the table against, Wisconsin, which they probably will, LSU, Oklahoma. I'm just saying that, look, if they lose to Tennessee, assuming they also lose at Georgia, I mean, I don't see them not just totally running the table at Missouri, at South Carolina, LSU at home, and at Auburn. I see them dropping another one of those games too. So if they lose to Tennessee again, another 9-3 seasons on the horizon for them.
Well, and let's remember that this was a series that wasn't a series, 15 in a row by Alabama. So this is a major kudos to Josh Heupel and what he's done. Caleb, but I think Tennessee's at the point where their season-defining moment is Georgia. You're either at that level or you're not. And Tennessee has proven that they're at Alabama's level and better. So that definition, and I'm not trying to pick apart what Chris and Mark wrote at all, but to me, the season-defining game is in the first month of the season. It's the Georgia Bulldogs, because if you still can't hang at least tight with them, then you're going to lose a lot of recruiting battles. Then that series probably continues, and you have serious concerns about Josh Heupel ever beating Kirby Smart in Athens.
So in terms of where defining where Tennessee is as a program and talent-wise, you're right. I actually think Georgia is, because it'll really tell us what we know about Tennessee. In terms of this is the biggest determining factor over whether or not Tennessee gets into the playoff, I actually disagree with you, but I don't think it's Alabama either. Are you ready, Dave? You ready?
South Carolina?
No, they don't play them this year. It's at Florida. It's at Florida. And that may sound crazy, but Tennessee hasn't won in the Swamp in 22 years. They went to the Swamp 2 years ago as heavy favorites and laid an egg.
Well, you know, that was the Cooper Mays game. So
that was the Cooper Mays game, but it still was a bad look that they laid an egg like that. So now we're talking about Tennessee. I mean, let's just be honest here. Florida could be a much better team this year, a much better team. We can make fun of Billy Napier in details and everything, but they had a strong finish to last season. They've kind of stayed steady on what they're doing, and nobody's panicked down there. And they could be a dangerous team. And put it this way, if Tennessee beats Florida, then they're almost certainly going to be no worse than 10-2, which, as I already said, doesn't guarantee them a playoff spot. But I think you and I can both agree that if you're 10-2, you're likely to get a playoff spot, right?
No, I would agree with that. And give us our poll question, because I want to change it up fairly quickly. Where do we stand on that? What's our poll question right now?
Vol season defining game this year, Alabama or Georgia?
Okay, Caleb says it's Alabama. Actually, Caleb says it's Florida. I say it's Georgia. I think we're going to know in the first month. There's going to be no excuses about injuries, and Georgia has more depth late in the season. We've heard that excuse before. We've heard a lot of excuses. But if Tennessee doesn't at least hang tight with Georgia, then I don't think they're going to win a national championship anytime soon. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones. And then you, Caleb.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott.
Caleb, you were going to say, sir?
I think how about this as a split the baby? Georgia's definitely the program defining game. I mean, that is going to,
But you should be at that point in year number 5. You should be at the point where you can play with anybody.
That's my point. That's why it's a program defining game. But if your focus is just making the college football playoff or not to get in, it's Florida. Because if you lose to Florida, there's a virtually 100% chance you're not going to the college football playoff.
Definitely not Florida.
It is.
It's not. Right now, 100% say Georgia over Alabama. Well, everybody disagrees with Mark and Chris.
If you lose to Florida, you're 100% going 9-3 or worse. If you beat Florida, you're 100% going 10-2 or better. And so that's so that's literally, as we saw last year, the line for in and out of the college football playoff is 10-2 or 9-3. So that's why, I mean, Florida's, look, put it this way. I don't think it's a big deal if Tennessee loses at Alabama this year. I get the rivalry and everything with that, but I think Alabama is going to be a very, very good football team. And you go to Tuscaloosa and lose. Is there really any shame in that, Dave, with your toughest road game?
Yeah, a little bit. No, I feel like Tennessee surpassed them. They beat them 2 out of 3
at home. They still haven't beaten them in Tuscaloosa.
Okay, so I'm going to switch up the question a little bit, and let me ask you, because any football guy would look at me like I had a horn coming out of my head, and you may do so. But what's the new poll question? Set us up for that if you don't mind.
Okay. Let's see. Would you rather beat Georgia and lose to Florida and Alabama? Beat Florida and Alabama and lose to Georgia?
What about that? Give that some thought. Brought to you by our friends at the UPS store, Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services locally owned and operated by Tennessee fans. The link is right down below. The UPS store, Hardin Valley. Which would be the better season at the end of the year if Tennessee did lose to Florida, did lose to Alabama, both games on the road, but beat Georgia at home, as opposed to vice versa? I'm not sure it wouldn't say more about the program to beat Georgia and slip up, because there could be a myriad of reasons, just like there was the Cooper Mays reason. But no, I mean, beating Georgia would be a game changer.
Okay, you kind of got me. You're right. Because it's at home, beating Georgia and losing to Florida and Alabama, I'd rather take that than the one that than beat Florida. Well, no, I'm still going to say beat Florida and Alabama and lose to Georgia. You beat Florida and Alabama, but you lose to Georgia. I mean, that's 2 losses versus 1. You're taking the playoff in the vacuum. If you're put it this way, yes, your point is valid that if you fail to beat Georgia at home this year, then you probably are never going to be on their level. However, if you fail to beat Georgia at home, but you manage to beat Florida and Alabama both on the road, you'll give off a sense that you may not be on Georgia's level ever, but you'll be capable of knocking them off every now and then. Look, I want to tell you guys something that's very uncomfortable. And Dave, I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this or not. As long as Kirby Smart's there, as a program, Tennessee will never be better than Georgia. Now, they can have better teams, they can have better seasons than Georgia, but they will not have a better program than Georgia for the entire time Kirby Smart is there.
See, I don't believe that.
I don't think it's possible.
I don't believe Kirby Smart is unapproachable like Nick Saban. I wouldn't have said the same thing about Nick Saban. I says as long as he's there, it's not going to happen. For a couple of different reasons. I don't think that the whole play for a discount is going to work with Kirby, and I've heard that's something they're going after. Tennessee is going the route of Michigan and Ohio State, and that's keeping guys. So I'm not sure that I agree with you there. I could see a lot of guys transferring out of Georgia, their depth being an issue. Yeah, I could see Tennessee going toe-to-toe, and Kirby Smart, Josh Heupel, 6 years from now are 3-3, putting them on equal footing. Are you telling me that's impossible?
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that I think overall, here's what I put it this way. Let me give you an example. 90s, throughout the 90s. We all remember Tennessee's heyday being in the 90s. We remember the 95 to 98 run, the 98 national title. It's a glorious time in Tennessee football history. I think we would agree, if you take the whole conglomerate of the 90s, Florida was a better program in the 90s than Tennessee, right? I mean,
yes, but not as much as it's remembered because of some of the one-sided scores. I mean, they both just won 1 national title.
Right, that's my point. They both just won 1 national title, but Florida got 6 SEC titles to Tennessee's 2, 3 if you count 1990. So it's like, because of that, Florida was the better program, but Tennessee had better teams during those years and was able to beat them. I would look at it that way with Tennessee and Georgia, in the sense of Tennessee can have years where they beat Georgia. They can have a couple of years where they beat Georgia. They can have some times where they lose to Georgia close and they should have won. They could maybe even win back-to-back SEC titles and a national title. But I think over conglomerate, over a 4 to 5 year period or a 10-year period, you won't ever be able to carve out 4 years consecutive and say during that 4-year period, Tennessee was the better program than Georgia. I just don't think you're going to be able to do that as long as Kirby Smart's there. But look, you're right. I could be wrong. No one would have said that Georgia would ever have the better program than Tennessee when Philip Fulmer was there. And then starting in the early to mid-2000s, the recruiting suffered under Fulmer.
Let me just throw some things out there that you probably need to consider, not you, but rhetorically for those listening. And that is the traffic issues. Don't think there's not going to be a couple of kids that's parents say, I'd rather you not go to Athens. There's nothing to do there other than drive fast. And they've got that perfect road that runs from, I don't know if you've been on it, from Atlanta to Athens. And it's like that you're supposed to just open up your car and go as fast as you humanly can. So I think they'll have that issue. I don't think the play for a discount is going to work. And at the end of the day, and this kind of leads us into our next topic, who has the better offensive scheme and offensive approach? I would say Tennessee does.
So that helps them get offensive players. What about getting defensive players? I mean, it's
I think it's just going to be like Nick Saban. You're probably going to struggle to do that.
And I mean, someone's bringing it up, and I mean, I something like Adam, you bring up that Tennessee may have a more marketable program if they just need to win. I understand that, and I understand Dave's point about discipline, and that's real. But marketability, I might disagree with. Look, I actually think Knoxville is one of the prettiest cities in terms of SEC towns. I don't think University of Tennessee has one of the best campuses in the SEC specifically. It's not as integrated with the city as it should be. And I mean, I think Athens is, y'all can hate me on this and people can hate me on saying this. Athens is bar none the best college town and college vibe in the SEC. It literally laps every other place in the country. The combination of the food and the restaurants and the theater district right there and the beauty of the scenery. Now, Sanford Stadium's not as good as Neyland Stadium. The fall backdrop during football season in Neyland Stadium is the prettiest backdrop in all of college football. But as an actual college town, Athens is better because it's the best in the country.
I think you're a little too down on Knoxville. I think
No, I'm not down on Knoxville. I'm not down. I'm saying Athens is the best in the country, though.
The best in the country?
Athens is the best college town in the country. I just gave you guys the backdrop of Neyland Stadium with the Smoky Mountains and all. Look, you have to nitpick when you rank college towns. Knoxville's a good one. But you have to nitpick. Like I've told you, the backdrop with Neyland Stadium and a fall afternoon game in October. Oh, my God, best backdrop in football. But actual college towns, guys, look, I'm sorry. Like, one, a lot of the things that are pretty about Knoxville, Tennessee's campus isn't even close to. You got to take the trolley to get downtown or the bus.
Not as bad as it used to, though. It's a little more integrated. But anyway, Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Life made better. Member FDIC. Josh Heupel's approach to Tennessee's offense is not a concern. I did the numbers. Tennessee has been 1 or 2 in the SEC in total offense since he took over, except for the Joe Milton year, and they only dropped to 7. So I just wanted to look at those numbers, and you can read it on offthehooksports.com right now, because to me, there's been an overreaction to Josh Heupel's offense not scoring 58 points a game in 2024 with a first-year starting quarterback, and the year before with a guy that really didn't grasp what was going on. So now you could knock him for the talent evaluation, and maybe Nico should have played more in 2023. I would argue that for sure. But if the worst you're going to do 7th in the SEC in a 4-year span, you can roll with that.
So
here he goes.
I disagree. Now, and look, I'm a Josh Heupel defender in a lot of ways. I think we're short selling what the offense has done. But I think what Josh Heupel, the principles of his offense, the roots of his offense and what he wants to run, I have no problem with it. My catch is now I'm gonna quote Dave's favorite assistant coach, but who actually said something brilliant one time. But was talking about preparing for Spurrier's offense and the trick plays of Spurrier. But he said, you got to worry about the meat and potatoes before you think about the dessert. And I'm like, but that doesn't mean the dessert's not a factor. Now, Josh Heupel's meat and potatoes, they're golden. They're golden. The offense he runs, the system he runs, the way he adapts, the meat and potatoes are there. Okay?
Yeah.
They're good.
Nobody has meat and potatoes like Josh Heupel. Thank you. That sounds great.
Okay. How about this? Josh Heupel, say it's a steak. Say Josh Heupel's offense is a steak.
Say it's twig and berries.
Perfectly cooked steak. Well, like decently cooked. And when I say perfectly or well cooked, I mean medium rare. If you get anything like more cooked than medium rare, you're not eating a steak. You might as well get a burger. But anyways, Josh Heupel's steak perfectly cooked. You need a little seasoning. You got to throw in the right amount of seasoning, though. And that's where the creativity comes. And this is where I think Josh Heupel is lacking. See, when Alex Golesh was there was a scripted first drive pretty much every game. And it wasn't necessarily the meat and potatoes of the offense, but there was that it was a strong first impression. We're going to catch this team off guard with certain play calling that we do, and we're going to make sure we set the tone early. And they had so much creativity on those drives. I think they're lacking that with Joey Halsley. And I got to be honest, I think that's where Josh Heupel needs to look elsewhere. Josh Heupel needs to find a guy like Alex Golish who works with him to run the offense and can do the day-to-day stuff, but can add the sizzle necessary. That, Dave, what did I say to you yesterday? That another smart person, that Butch Jones, I'm kidding, but something Butch Jones said that is smart and true. A lot of times football comes down to 3 or 4 plays a game and you don't know when they're going to happen. That sizzle, that creativity, that's those 3 or 4 plays. And
let's put the poll question up, and that is, basically, here's what we're asking, because you have John Gruden that's going to talk to the high school coaches. I don't know what he's going to say. But anyway, he could also look at Tennessee's offense. So should Tennessee bring somebody in from outside to take a look at their offense, which I'm sure Gruden will do. They'll spend some time doing that, I would think, unless they just hate each other. Or is Tennessee's offense just fine? So you figure out a way to phrase that, and that is bank on it. I say that Tennessee's offense is just fine based off the numbers that I pulled, and you can check out at offthehooksports.com. Caleb says, not so fast. Member FDIC, life made better. Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
All right, Timothy, we appreciate the super chat. Said Hooker, when I said Heupel's offense is not creative, I was talking about where the under center, where the RB slants, wide receiver slants, curls, and comeback routes and jet sweeps are. But I think that's part of the design of this offense. You don't want to overcomplicate things because you make a lot of reads and you can make your quarterback look really stupid if your wide receiver runs the wrong route.
I agree with that. Now, I want to address Timothy McGee's super chat real quick, but I want to bring up, I'm going to dive deeper into your stats, Dave, because there's a problem with Heupel's stats, and you want to know what they are?
Well, he inflates them.
He inflates them against non-SEC competition. Guess where Tennessee's scoring offense ranked in SEC play this year?
Last year?
Yeah, 2024.
Okay. I'm going to say 5th. Ninth
in the bottom half of the SEC. But are you ready for this, Dave? It gets worse. Their scoring offense ranked in the bottom half of the SEC, even though they did not play the 3 best defenses in the SEC, and they did play the 3 worst defenses in the SEC per number. The average ranking of the scoring defenses in the SEC play that Tennessee played last year was 10th. And they had the 9th ranked scoring offense in SEC play. I'm sorry, but that's a really, really, really bad look for an offense. And I think the issue comes with there weren't those 4 or 5 sizzle plays to make a difference each game. To Timothy super chat real quick, just want to share that. He says, Hooker, when I said Heupel's offense is not created, I was talking about where the under center, where's the RB slants, wide receiver slants, curls, and comeback routes and jet sweeps. Yeah, there were some slants last year with the wide receivers, not as much with the running back slants, though, and not a lot of curl routes. I do kind of agree with that.
Well, let's throw a couple of other things up there on our message board. Dylan says, let's be honest, the main issue is Heupel is running an up-tempo offense with no tempo. That's part of the problem. I agree with that, but I think that you were so susceptible at the tackle position, you were afraid to do that with the injuries to Hurd and Campbell. So Timothy, nice enough to throw another super chat in there that'll go to Quincy Calhoun's college fund as long as Caleb doesn't gamble it away. Then Nico is no Manning or Ainge or Clausen because they could do it. I will tell you that I think Manning, Ainge, and Clausen could run this offense at a high level. And it wouldn't stun me at the end of the day if we looked at Nico and his tenure as short of those guys. I think you're talking about the 3, well, especially the 3 best of the modern era, in my opinion. I don't know if you would count Condridge in that. I know you've got a definition for modern.
I mean, there's Dobbs, Heath Schuler. There's a few guys.
But to run this offense, to get it
out. To run this offense? No, there's two. There's two ahead of them. Ahead of all three of them.
Oh,
Heath Schuler and T. Martin would be superb in this offense. I mean, they'd be flawless. Because I think even you said T. Martin had a better deep ball than Peyton Manning, didn't you? And
oh yeah, when you showed up to practice, it was like, who just launched that thing?
And Heath Schuler had a better deep ball than Peyton Manning too, didn't he? So yeah, I mean, those were the two best deep ball passers in the modern era. Third would be Tyler Bray. Jonathan Crompton's in there too. The problem with Tyler Bray is probably a little too slow. You got to have a little bit of mobility in this offense, I think. But look, I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you gave Jonathan Crompton a full 4 years in this offense, I mean, he probably could be really, really good.
Yeah, but I don't think you have to be mobile in this offense. I think it helps, but like that would negate Clausen, basically, right? I think Clausen would be very good in this offense. He wouldn't run much, obviously, because his shoes were always tied together. But I mean, Caleb, I think he would get it out quick and make quick reads.
I might go with Clausen. I think you're probably right with Clausen. Clausen had a pretty good deep ball also.
Yes.
So, Ainge and Manning we're talking about, their deep balls weren't bad, but they weren't like Hall of Fame worthy. Like the guys we're talking, like Tyler Bray had an incredible deep ball. And also, look, again, that's why I brought up Crompton. Whatever else you want to say about Crompton, he had an arm. I mean, he could throw it deep. And I think a lot of quarterbacks, funny enough, in Tennessee's history could work well. You know who wouldn't work well in this system? You know who would struggle the most in this system of great Tennessee quarterbacks?
I don't.
Josh Dobbs. He would not be good in this system.
Yeah, but I could have come up with a lot. I could have come up with Tim Rattay. There's a lot of quarterbacks.
Quarterbacks that are good that Tennessee fans like that wouldn't be good in the system. Josh Dobbs did not have the arm strength. Arm strength is probably number one and something you need in this system. Is you got to be able to throw it at a certain level.
Timothy, we'll get to your super chat again. Quincy Calhoun thanks you. Work trucks, all about trucks. Trucks are actually available. Trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intended on offering while other dealerships can't do it. You got to check them out. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed. Pickup trucks of all sizes. Anything special if you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks. They carry the trucks that your business has to have. They are on Clinton Highway in Knoxville and downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go to Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. We are represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, and they bring you the stat of the day.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
Stat of the day. Caleb, what do you got?
Well, Timothy in the super chat is trying to point out Manning was longer of the two quarterbacks I mentioned in the NFL. Well, Peyton Manning was better than those guys, and Peyton Manning's probably, I still maintain, greatest quarterback of all time. I don't care what anybody says, but that we're talking about.
Caleb gets defensive.
We're talking specifically Josh Heupel's offense, which again is not an offense conducive for the NFL. So it's a totally different type of offense. Stat of the day. Funny enough, at the very beginning of the show, David Speaks made a comment on this and already had it ready to go, but it's a little bit different from what David Speaks was saying. But David, you were on the right track. Zakai Ziegler had 8 assists versus Vanderbilt, pushing his assists total to 659. Dave, that's 5th highest in SEC history.
Pretty strong.
He's in the top 5 in career assists in the SEC now.
That is very strong. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. They have perfected the buying process, and you're going to be absolutely blown away by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. They want to put you in that new car. They love supporting local businesses, and they want to enjoy you being a part of the process because they have a fantastic selection. That's why they're East Tennessee's largest volume dealer when it comes to Ford and Lincoln. We'll visit with John Wilkerson, the man, the voice of the Diamond Vols, in 2 minutes. Please hit that like button. A lot of you haven't. And if you have questions for John, fill them in right now. We'll get them to him, and we'll talk some Diamond Vols. Stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Let's go ahead and bring this guy in right now. One of my favorites in the biz, John Wilkerson, joins us. John, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Dave. How are you? Caleb, good to see you again.
Good to see you, John.
John knows more about baseball than anybody I've ever been around, and I'm sure he's very excited that the Diamond Vols are back at it. At what point, though, did it settle in, maybe in the offseason, that you just called a national championship team? I mean, it still doesn't sound completely right, given that you and I are both Knoxville natives. It still doesn't sound completely right, does it?
Yeah, it really has been so surreal. And it was funny, too, because first time I had the chance to talk to Coach after the championship celebration, it's like I can tell you that in the last week I've had 3 different dreams where there was one more game to win. And then I kept thinking to myself, in the context of that same dream, it's like, well, then why did they give us a parade? So it really was something. But yeah, I mean, just to see Tennessee be able to sit in the seat that it does, national champions, and now defending the crown, it's been remarkable because you go back to when he was introduced as Tennessee's head coach. He's had a vision for all of this, and it's been incredible to see how steady the climb was, how the ascension came the way it did, because everything was just a step forward, even with the unfortunate setback that was 2022. Right back at it after a kind of a heartbreaking start to the season. They were right there in the College World Series, and then last year, not just knocked on the door, but kicked the darn thing down.
Yeah, so John, let's talk about this season opening sweep of Hofstra over the weekend. I mean, it's Hofstra. I think they run-ruled all 3 games. But given the fact that I know it's a different team, but you're talking defending national champions who have an opening series in the cold of February and just absolutely obliterate them. How impressive is it to get to keep them that up and that excited to play for a series like that after being defending national champs.
Yeah, well, one of the things that stands out, you have the most turnover from one year to the next, going back to, it's identical to me to 2022, because you had so many guys move on to their start of their pro careers or just exhaust their eligibility. So you return Dean Curley in the starting lineup, Hunter Ensley in the starting lineup, and then your entire weekend rotation is brand new. So with all of the turnover, I think there was a point in time where this team, without question, celebrating what the program that they just joined accomplished, but now they want to carve their own path. And so they want to go win trophies of their own. For Tennessee last year to go win to rally and win the SEC East, the SEC regular season, and the SEC tournament championships. Those were great building blocks to set the stage for them to be the 1 seed and go do what no top seed has done since 1999. But I think this group, even though there are a number of guys still wearing orange and white that got to celebrate everything last year, it's a different role for them. So for them to go ahead, hit the ground running as they did, to see Liam Doyle get the ball for the first start for Tennessee and perform the way he did, Marcus Phillips, who earned the start having been primarily a reliever last year, watch him perform, and then see Nate Snead get that opportunity to be a weekend starter in the first weekend. Don't know that that's where he'll be this weekend or even moving forward. I just think it was really neat to see the way this team completely embraced the fact that this is the start of their time, as opposed to trying to duplicate what the 2024 team did.
Yeah, and it's to me a program that still, I go back to 2022, right? And they had the kind of wild group there a little bit. I think still that these players, and you're right, it's a different group every year, but I feel like they learned something from that, and there's a maturity there in that program that the LSUs of the world have had over the years, and those type of teams.
I agree, because even though there is still for many, whether it be members of the Southeastern Conference, fans of other SEC schools, or even media for that matter, they still look at Tennessee through those 2022 season eyes. So I think last year you saw a team, they were ready to scrape. If there was another team that bowed up against the Volunteers, then guys that were there for 2022 as freshmen like Christian Moore and Blake Burke, they're ready to go with the drop of a hat. But that wasn't what was at the forefront. They didn't have to be nasty. They didn't have to be villains. They just wanted to be the big orange, and that's what they did. But if there was somebody that, I mean, it's kind of like, if you don't want nothing, don't start nothing. That was kind of the approach. And so I do think that Drew Beam was also a part of that 2022 team. And so I think that you have seen not just the maturing of the head coach of the Volunteers, Tony Vitello, but I also think the mindset of Tennessee baseball players is much more grounded now than when they wanted to announce their presence with authority. But you're exactly right, Dave. I think you saw this team, especially the guys that were the building blocks of last year's title, they grew, and they grew as individuals, and they also grew in terms of how they wanted to represent Tennessee. And I mean, not anything at all against that incredible team that was so good in 2022. I mean, that's what they needed to do, to let folks know that Tennessee was here, that Tennessee was a part of the conversation, and they earned every bit of it. But I do think that you have seen what are the goals, the approach from one day to the next for essentially all Tennessee baseball players. That continues to be, look, today is the only day that we can focus on. This is the only day we can impact, because what you've done yesterday doesn't apply, and what may happen tomorrow, well, there's just no reason to worry about that.
I knew we'd have some questions for you. Already have one. David says, John, who's the biggest threat to usurp us as champions? That still doesn't sound right. LSU, Texas, or Texas A&M this baseball season?
Well, all are getting a good look. Texas, the word on the Longhorns is they can rake. And, of course, this is Schlossnagle leaves Texas A&M to go to Austin. That was a bit of a scandal there. But anyhow, I think it starts with Texas A&M. The team that you had to beat last year to win it, they're a consensus number one to start this year. They had everybody that entered the portal when Schloss left, and then everybody stayed when they made a very good hire. The coach had followed the A&M coach to Austin, and then when A&M didn't get the big positive responses they expected from the guys that they said, hey, do you want the job? They went back to who was such a popular coach among the players, that when he was hired as the Aggies coach for this year, everybody stayed. Nobody left. And then they added some really nice pieces through the portal. So, I mean, the thing to remember, A&M was the last number one team before Tennessee became number one last year. And, of course, it went to game 3 before the Vols won that College World Series. So I think the Aggies first and foremost. LSU, I think, is going to be strong because they're right there with it when you see the preseason rankings. Arkansas, if it finds a way to do something in the postseason, which we haven't seen them do, they're also expected to be incredibly talented. So I do think that A&M, first and foremost, I do think Texas is going to be good. LSU and Arkansas are probably the other teams to watch first and foremost.
I'm completely ignorant to the situation, so I'm just going to tell you that up front. Explain the Alberto Osuna, the whole issue with him in the courts and what's going down there. Is this a lost year for him? What do you think?
Not yet. I do think the initial request for a waiver was denied. And so now it goes into, I think it's all about language, because he's in the exact same situation that we saw Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback. He got a year from the NCAA to make up for the time that he spent in the junior college ranks. And it is the exact same scenario for Ozuna. But at the same time, it's a different wording. It was very specific. It was Pavia was using year 3 in terms of his NCAA eligibility in the season that he's now going to get another bonus year for. For Ozuna, he was using year 4. But that's only the difference because it was a fall sport in football versus a spring sport in baseball. So it comes down to literal language in what was granted by the NCAA to right now. I think the first baseman from North Carolina, who played first at Walters State just up the road, I think he's got a really good argument, and I'll be surprised if it doesn't go his way. But at the same time, I've been disappointed by the NCAA before, and there is that chance. But I don't think there's any reason to think that he doesn't still have a very positive path to join this program right now.
I just had a flashback. I feel like I was in a preseason football practice where Philip Fulmer was kind of shaking the NCAA tree a little bit. Remember how he used to do when he go, well, if they could get their stuff done, maybe. And you kind of sounded a little bit like that. I like that. Go ahead, Caleb.
John, I want to ask you an overall question somewhat about Tennessee as a program and then, knocking down the door last year to win the World Series. Tell me if this is an apt comparison, just from a baseball history perspective. I think of the late 40s, early 50s Brooklyn Dodgers that kept knocking on the door, just couldn't get past the Yankees. And I think that 53 Dodgers had by far the best record in baseball, and that was the best record they had ever had. Lose to the Yankees again, like the 2022 Vols. 2 years later, with Jackie Robinson, they knocked down the door, finally win the World Series in 55. And then that spurs like 4 more World Series titles, I think, over the next 10 years for the Dodgers. Do you think Tennessee's in that mold where, because they kept going to the College World Series, they had the best team they had ever had in 2022 and get bounced out, but then they finally knocked down the door in 2024. Do you think the psychological aspect of knocking down the door can make this team almost be dynastic over the next decade?
There's certainly that potential, because I think it starts first with the staff. Because what was most impressive to me, you come out of 2022 where you didn't make it to Omaha, and then they're everybody's number 2 team because you return all of your starting pitching. You expect the lineup to be good, even though you lost as much as you did from those hitters 1 to 9. And then it was just a stumble out of the gate. You're 5-10 after the first half of the SEC schedule. And then having looked at what had worked, what the approach was by the staff to say, here's what gives us our best chance to win, Tennessee goes from being 5-10 to going 11-4 the rest of the way. It was the second best turnaround ever by a team that went 5-10 to finish the league. So for them to do that, shake that off, and get to Omaha for the second time at that point in 3 years, I think that tells you you've got a staff that if it doesn't go right, they're not going to do any. I mean, they're going to burn both ends of the candle, whatever it takes, just to find the way to best compete. Now, recent history will tell you, after Mississippi State won it, they dropped off the table. After Ole Miss won it, they disappeared. LSU had struggles last year in defending their crown. LSU had the best follow-up season compared to the previous 2, but they still fell far short of how dominant and how good they were. Granted, you lose Paul Skeens, and those are huge shoes to fill. But anyhow, LSU was in a better position because they played their best ball at the end of the season. So history will tell you, recent history, that it could be an uphill climb for Tennessee. But I really like what the Vols have to go out there and try and compete, if not win another one. And if it doesn't click originally or right out of the chute, then I do think it's a staff that's not going to be outworked and trying to find the combination that does. So, yes, I think Tennessee is rightly in that conversation to get back to Omaha. And without a doubt, they have the personnel to go win it. They are a younger team this year than they were last year when you look at who are going to be the key reserves, things along those lines. But I do think that they are, Caleb, right where they need to be, just in terms of what you look at on paper as to building blocks and everything it takes to win.
A couple more questions from the message board, but raise your hand if you thought that Caleb Calhoun made up a word. Didn't. Dynastic is a word. I thought he was trying to say dynamic or something else.
No, I was trying to say dynastic.
You did a great job, but it relates to hereditary rulers of a country and a succession of rulers. That's a very good word, Caleb. I'm not selling you short at all. That's a great word.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sounds like such a backhanded compliment. Can you take that down? I can't get it down. We got a couple of questions I want to get to. I know John's got to get out of here, but will Tennessee's JUCO arms get more run than the freshman pitchers? What do you say?
I think so. I think when all is said and done, I think there are going to be plenty of opportunities. And I have seen in the comments section, rightly so, that Tennessee is already minus 6 innings in terms of after the first week against Hofstra. That's the boomerang from the run rule is you miss out on those chances for either plate appearances and or innings on the mound. But I think it's going to come down to who looks best ready to compete. And so I do believe those guys that already have a little bit of experience are going to be further down the road than the freshmen. So yes, and then you add Tegan Coons. He was actually a freshman that was thought to possibly be in the mix to start this past weekend, but he had been a little bit under the weather. And as Coach joined us on Monday on Sports Talk, he said he wants to see him go through a couple of bullpens before he puts him out there. So not to say that there can't be freshmen who move in front of some junior college pitchers in terms of what Tennessee has this year, but I think the guys that are stronger, that have a little bit of seasoning under their belt are ready to go. My guess is they'll probably get the early opportunities, but I also think as long as Frank Anderson gives them the thumbs up, anybody has the chance to get out there.
Last thing, John, will let you go, and you can listen to John 6 to 9 Eastern on the Sports Animal. He is unbelievably fantastic. David says, does Inslee take the star captain role over from Christian Moore this season?
I think there's the potential for that, without a doubt. That's the reason that Hunter came back. I mean, to do what he did, to make that catch against Carolina, the slide would prove to be the winning run to give you a national championship. I mean, it's legendary. He could have literally ridden off into the sunset. But as he said himself, and if you haven't seen the documentary Hunter, check it out on the Tennessee Athletics app. It should be the YouTube channel for Tennessee Athletics. Such a fantastic, it's about a 45-minute deal on Hunter and last year's team. But it's so remarkably done. But as he himself said, he thinks that he has a greater impact on this year's Tennessee team than he could have had in terms of enjoyment and possibly being somewhere else playing for anyone else. So why not go ahead, enjoy another year, your last year in the orange and white, see what you can do and just kind of letting the newcomers know, whether it's from the portal or from the high school ranks, that this is the expectation at Tennessee. This is where the bar is set in Knoxville. So yes, I think he is in a prime leadership position. I don't know that anybody can do production-wise what Christian Moore did, but Hunter Inslee has been a leader for a while and will continue to be one of the best for the Big Orange in that regard.
You're one of the best, John. We appreciate it. I love visiting with you. Let's do lunch sometime soon.
Absolutely, Dave. Caleb, sure to appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great day, and let's do this.
Let's do it. Thanks, John. John Wilkerson. Listen to those golden tones. Oh, man, he just bring it. Absolutely bring it. And Tennessee's baseball team, I can't help but think it raises the bar a little bit for the other athletes, the other teams, the other programs. Doesn't it have to?
Oh, yeah. It absolutely does. And it also, it's not like coaches are going to have an excuse where they'll be like, well, we just can't win at our sport because they're too invested in baseball. Like, do you remember that? And I think Jerry Green made the excuse where we just can't win. No, Kevin O'Neill did it. Kevin O'Neill was complaining about how it's tough to win at men's basketball at Tennessee because they put all their resources in women's basketball there.
John's appearance brought you, but there was a big division between ardent Lady Vol fans and ardent men basketball fans. Like nowadays, you're both. But
blaming the Lady Vols for your lack of
I'm
production.
I'm not saying it's not stupid, but absolutely. Ted Russell, man, he is a super dealer. We're broadcasting from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, represented by Banks and Jones. But I tell you what, Ted Russell has the buying process figured out, absolutely figured out. You'll love your vehicle. Bronco on the way. Let me tell you a little more about Ted Russell Ford Lincoln.
Like a blast from the past, the super dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The super dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is your super dealer, just in time for truck month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
The only reason Tennessee's baseball team can't be dynastic is because the College World Series is, what's the bigger crapshoot? The NCAA basketball tournament or the College World Series? It feels like if your pitcher has a bad day and you drop into that loser's bracket, it's over, doesn't it?
Oh, the College World Series. College World Series is the biggest crapshoot. One, the whole NCAA baseball tournament is a crapshoot. It is not an effective way to crown a champion, because of the fact that it's about element of randomness, guys. And in college basketball, I'd say college basketball is 50% the better team, 50% luck, right? Like football is 70% the better team, 30% luck.
I think football is a little bit more like 80%, and I think the better team in basketball is 60, 70, but let's not quibble over numbers like that.
Basically, a baseball game is about 30% who's the better team and 70% luck. That's why you have to play so many baseball games over the course of a season to really separate out the bad from the good. Because
in the MLB, they have that one game playoff, which makes no sense.
No, it's stupid. It is stupid. It is dumb. It is. The MLB had the perfect playoffs with the 8-team playoff, 3 division champions and a wild card. They should have stuck with that. But yeah, like what you want to do is inject a healthy dose of randomness, but not so much to where the lowest seed in the tournament can go win it, which I think has happened in the NCAA tournament in baseball. I'm not sure, but I think it has.
Probably. It seems like you could talk about the 3 favorites going into the College World Series, and they're not around into the second weekend.
Yeah.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports.
It's not this day in sports history, but David says, has Tony Vitello passed Rod Delmonico as the greatest baseball manager in Vols history? Yes. I don't know if he has as many wins, but you win a national championship, I don't care. And he's going to get there because I don't think he's going anywhere. All right, Caleb.
And also he's already had more College World Series appearances. So yeah, it's over.
Yeah, it's not even close. This day in Tennessee football or Tennessee sports history is?
On this day in Tennessee sports history, and this is actually going to involve a player for Dave's favorite team, but the Tennessee basketball program, back in 1967, they beat 9th ranked Vanderbilt at home. It was a crucial win because by beating 9th ranked Vanderbilt at home, they won the game 70-53 in a blowout. That allowed them to clinch the SEC regular season champion outright, which they did with a 15-3 regular season record in the SEC. Tennessee was led that year by Tom Borwinkle, who was, I believe, an All-American.
Yes.
And this led them to their first ever official NCAA tournament appearance. It was under Ray Mears in 1967. But the other guy on this team was somebody named Ron Whitby, who became a punter for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, he was an excellent punter. He was one of the better natural athletes that's gone to Tennessee. I know, you start factoring in strength and conditioning, then it's kind of hard to compare him to, an Albert Hainsworth. But as far as a natural athlete in his generation, he was one of those. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Go to hemphousechat.com, hemphousechat.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off. You can also use that promo code HOOKED at Hound Dogs of Knoxville for 10% off. And if you join the channel for just $4.99 a month, then we will send you a welcome present, and that will be a gift certificate, $20 gift certificate to Hound Dogs of Knoxville. So, Caleb, can you put that link back up there so everybody can contact us? The only problem we're having with this promotion is connecting with you. So we put a group post of everybody that's eligible. Some of you have already emailed me, so I'll get right back to you, but we'll get your gift cards out soon. And don't forget to use the promo code HOOKED, So we'll throw that link in here in just a moment. And then
the members link, is that what you're talking about?
No, the post link that we did the other day.
Sorry, I think I'm a little confused by which one we're talking about. We'll address this. I promise.
Okay. But, before the end of the program. All right, Caleb, what are we doing? See, you got too excited about yourself because you threw out dynastic. That was a great word. I rarely get words that I don't know what they mean, and I really thought you spazzed out and maybe had a little mini stroke or something.
Nope, that is a word. And the definition you gave is similar to the definition for dynasty. Like, it's about lines of succession. Like, dynasty is just a phrase people use in sports now, but like, it's about like.
No, it makes sense now, but it's probably about, I would imagine, kings and queens of England, right?
Of anywhere. Yeah. Kings and queens of anywhere. And, basically feudalism in that way.
Okay, it's time for What the H? And it's brought to you by feudalism. No, it's not. It's brought to you by Double D Piping.
What the H?
Wow, I've never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb. So Tennessee, and I've tried to do some digging here to see if something went awry in Justin Hopkins' recruitment. He ends up at Minnesota. It's not a great look because he's a 4-star prospect out of Nashville. What do you make of this move for him to go to Minnesota? This sounds like either, to me, Tennessee soured on him for some reason, or Minnesota paid a strong NIL check. But that's not confirmed. I reached out to somebody that would have knowledge of the situation, did not get that resolved before the beginning of the show. But it sounds like one of those situations to me.
Yeah, and he committed over Tennessee and USC. So, wouldn't Minnesota seem like it's last on the list of those 3 schools if he's committing somewhere?
It makes me feel so NIL heavy. Is it not you that they just decided that Hopkins, and tell us more about Hopkins, that he was going to be the guy that lead them to the promised land, but tell us more about Hopkins.
Yeah, so he's a 4-star cornerback. Minnesota, he says, sold him because he was at that Minnesota game, Minnesota-Penn State, this past regular season, where Minnesota lost to them by 1 and the fans were electric. By the way, what's relevant about that game, if Minnesota wins that game, Tennessee probably gets a home playoff game. So it's funny how that worked out. But
nothing like a good electrocuted golden gopher.
So basically, he said that Josh Heupel was recruiting him heavily into December, and he said that Tennessee did a great job recruiting him, and that this was just a gut feeling. And he says something about Minnesota just stood out differently to me. I'm sorry, I think these kids, particularly
the Laverne and Shirley show, I don't understand what could stick out.
Or the Mary War show.
Yeah, or Prince. I guess he's from Minneapolis, right?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, tell me, I just Kirby Puckett. Yeah,
he remembers Kirby Puckett playing.
I don't think he does. All right, give me a reason there on the message board why this guy would go to Minnesota other than NIL. after the Golden Gophers targeted him. What the H brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Okay, doesn't it have to be NIL? Do you have a better reason on the message board than that? What would it possibly be why you would go to Minnesota over Southern California or the University of Tennessee, your in-state school?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it could be other than NIL, unless he knew that he was going to get more playing time going straight to Minnesota. So I just don't understand why, like, what the big, like, what's leading.
Well, let's throw a couple of guys out there that are towards the top, and one is Zion Ely out of St. Francis Academy, edge rusher. Where's he going? Maryland. That
Which
to
is
me,
an in-state school.
Yeah, but that to me sounds like somebody that's throwing out some NIL cash. I was there when they did it with a couple of different guys in Maryland, and they do have the Under Armour guy nowhere in comparison to Nike, but he will throw money at some guys he likes, and now he's able to do it. Now, as far as Tennessee and who they have ranked in the 2026 class, and again, Hopkins played what position?
Cornerback.
Okay, so in the 2026 class right now, Tennessee does not have a cornerback committed for the 2026 class. This again is more, I think, proof that this had to be an NIL play by Minnesota.
Yeah, the NIL play is the only possibility that I see. And I mean, I'm looking at it more. There's also the fact that, I mean, PJ Fleck, if there's one area he's actually if there's one area that he's kind of known for, he does pretty well with defensive backs. And I know what Tennessee did last year. Dave, honestly, even though Jamal McCoy was an All-American, I still think people are giving more credit to the defensive line for the secondary improvement last year than they are the secondary. I think people still have concerns and questions about how good Tennessee secondary actually is, and how well they actually develop you for the pros. And so I think there's a little more value in PJ Fleck. But the other move is probably NIL. You're right. I'm wondering what industry is at Minnesota that would lead them to do that. I mean, like, because you bring up Zion Ely, what Maryland does, and this is a big thing. Maryland has good, not great, but good, decent high school football talent in the state. And what the Under Armour guy does, Kevin Plank, is like the top recruit in the state or the top 2 in the state each year. He throws all the money to make sure those 2 don't leave. And then the rest of them leave. You know what I mean? So, like, Zion Ely will stay. Stephon Diggs will stay. They'll get Raheem Jarrett, but they're going to lose everybody else in the state to Penn State or somebody like that. But, like, why are you going to throw NIL money to get a fringe 4-star from way down south if you're Minnesota? It's like, it's just odd that they would do that. And there's something else here that's just not adding up. And I can't quite put my finger on it, honestly, because I can't just say it's just NIL. So the only other thing you can maybe say is that, because he was targeted by USC too, maybe Tennessee wasn't, while they were recruiting him well, and he says they were recruiting him well, maybe they weren't recruiting him heavily. Like, maybe Josh Heupel wasn't at his games and all that. If
you stop by Athens, Tennessee, and that exit, you can go to Dynasty Pools and Spas and pick up a free Off the Hook Sports gift, a book or a t-shirt just for saying hello. And if you purchase the spa, mention us, and you get $500 off, complete setup, all delivered, the steps, the cover lift, all of that. And I remind you, it's Dynasty Pools and Spas, free gift just for stopping by on the Athens exit. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa.
Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Factor that could be at play is maybe Tennessee just looks at Hopkins a little bit differently than Minnesota. And this cropped up in Mel Kiper's latest podcast talking about James Pierce. And he said, quote, I think every evaluator will admit this. There are some players that you just don't know. You really can't feel strongly one way or the other about a player. You're almost resigned to throw your hands up and say, I don't get this. I can't make a strong argument to take him or not to take him. Talking about Pierce. Pierce is one of those guys because I thought going in, based on what we saw last year in 2023, that he would be maybe the number one pick in this draft, that pass rusher who's going to get a ton of sacks. Sometimes it's just talent evaluation. Maybe Tennessee isn't as high on Hopkins as Minnesota is, and you can feel that sort of love, Caleb.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, sometimes it is just a vibe, and PJ Fleck is. Okay, I'll say this too, and there's another layer to this on why PJ Fleck might do this. PJ Fleck acts a little bit like Eli Drinkwitz or Shane Beamer, which is to say that Tennessee might say it's nice to get this guy, but we're not going to exert all of our recruiting efforts on him. And PJ Fleck may want to say, man, wouldn't it look real good if I went to the heart of Tennessee and got a kid out of there and I could just tell everybody that I did that? And so he maybe like put all his effort into doing that to get the front page headlines of PJ Fleck plucks a recruit out of Tennessee. You know, coaches have done that in recruiting in the past, haven't they? Put all their efforts on just beating out one school for one recruit so they could claim they did it and brag about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee, we talked about Eric Berry yesterday. I think Tennessee knew that it would be a horrible look if they lost Eric Berry. So you saw some of that portion.
But that was horrible look, but also they knew he was that good. One for Tennessee that I'll give you, though, I think Lane Kiffin put like a ton of extra time in trying to land Bryce Brown. He really wanted to get the press of getting the number one player in the nation, right? More than anything else.
Portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. Stop by and tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports said hello. We also remind you that Rick Terry Jewelry Design, they want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. So, Caleb, this to me is emblematic of some of your shortcomings as a sports journalist. You say that Tennessee would rather be a 2 or 3 seed and close to home than be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, which they've never been before, which pretty much guarantees you a first round win. So explain that to me. Closer to home. Do you think there's going to be a massive fan attack and there's going to be a home court advantage like no other? I'm having trouble following your logic. To be a number 1 seed would be historic.
I think Tennessee has the chance to have one of the best home court advantages in all of college basketball for this reason. I think, Dave, let's look at the teams that are vying for the number 1 seed spot right now. Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, Auburn, Houston, Duke. Those are the top 6. Everybody else is fighting. Those top 6 fighting for the top 4. Outside of Duke, which of those teams would you say has a deeper fan base than Tennessee in basketball?
I mean, Tennessee's pretty deep. I mean, who would you say?
Nobody. Tennessee.
Yeah.
So if you get Tennessee close to home in the regional closer to home. Now, I can't speak for the first weekend because those first weekend selections are random. They try to get everybody close to home the first weekend. So I'm talking the second weekend. Here's where the regionals are, Dave. Newark, New Jersey, San Francisco, California, Atlanta, Georgia, or Indianapolis, Indiana.
Called an indoor football game there in Newark, New Jersey once.
Oh, really? They played
Me and Steve Hamer. He was my color guy.
Oh, nice.
We random.
Would you rather? So let's say Tennessee's the 2 seed.
I'd rather not go to New Jersey ever again. If that's one of my choices, then you just won your argument because I don't ever want to go to New Jersey.
New Jersey's the Mississippi of the East Coast.
Maybe it was just a big dump. It felt like somebody went around every night and just sprayed stuff gray.
So, would you rather be the 2 seed in Atlanta or Indianapolis? Let's take Atlanta. Say you're the 2 seed in Atlanta and Alabama's the 1 seed, or Auburn's the 1 seed. Now they're all equally close to Atlanta. Knoxville, Alabama, Auburn, they're all very close to Atlanta. Which fan base do you think is going to overwhelm the other ones, Dave?
You would think Tennessee would.
Yeah, because Alabama and Auburn don't care about basketball still. They can't fill their arenas now, and they're way smaller than Thompson Bowling. So there's that. The same with Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis is a very reasonable drive for Knoxville, right? They would pack in Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah, it's not really reasonable, but it's reasonable-ish.
So imagine if they have the number 1 seed, but they're in the West Regional out in San Francisco, and they play like, I don't know, I haven't even covered the Pac-10 this year, or not the Pac-10, but West Coast teams. But, the best West Coast team right now that there's nobody good on the West Coast this year, but Arizona is probably the best team on the West Coast. Tennessee has the number 1 seed, and say Arizona's the 4 seed, and Tennessee has to play Arizona in the Sweet 16. Would you rather be playing Arizona as the 1 seed in San Francisco, or would you rather be playing Alabama as the 2 seed in Atlanta? And this is what I'm talking about. Or Iowa State.
No, I would rather be the 1 seed. I'll answer that question. I would rather be the 1 seed. Yeah.
I don't care about the 1 seed. Who cares? First of all, the difference in your path to the Elite 8 is minimal versus the 1 or the 2 seed. Very minimal. Very minimal. So I'd rather play closer to home, particularly as a Tennessee guy, because if I'm Tennessee, if I play for Tennessee, if I'm a Tennessee fan, I know my fans are going to show up for the games in Atlanta. They're going to show up for the games in Indy. I'm going to get a home court advantage in the NCAA tournament.
But Caleb, I've covered like 10 different NCAA tournament sites, and there's never a field that, other than Kentucky, that a fan base takes over because they have to split the tickets like 4 or 8 ways or however they do it. I've never been, other than Kentucky, even with the SEC tournament, which I don't know why they waste their money on that. But other than Kentucky, I've never been at one of those NCAA venues and thought, man, that team is taking over the fans, the fan section, and they're having an effect on the game. I've never felt that way.
There are tickets that do get split, and then they just go to the general public afterward. And I'm telling you, Tennessee fans would scoop up those tickets. We're talking about a fan base that took over 43% of Ohio State's football stadium in an actual road game, not even a neutral site game.
But it's basketball.
Yeah, well, there's fewer fans, but there's also smaller stadiums. You don't think Tennessee would take over it? Again, I just went down the list. Auburn, Florida, Duke, Alabama, Houston, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Iowa State, Texas Tech, St. John's. Dave, of the top 10 schools right now, the top 10 seeds in the NCAA tournament, Tennessee would outdraw all of them except for Duke. And by the way, all right, here goes my hot take. Yeah, I'm sorry. Y'all can call me crazy. I think there's a possibility Tennessee would outdraw Duke. Because
there's a good possibility. But Duke, you have to understand it's a very small school, and it's kind of an elitist school that looks down on a lot of sports like Vanderbilt.
Yes, and 90% of Duke fans are just regular fans who don't ever go to the games. It's like Miami fans, honestly, in football. Whereas, I think you covered that Tennessee-Miami game in football back in 2003. Didn't it seem like there were almost more Tennessee fans at that game?
Yeah, but I remember it was weird because they kind of wore orange too. That was one of the, in the Orange Bowl, that was one of the more difficult games. Yeah, actually.
To determine the breakdown.
Yeah, I will tell you this story, though. My wife was pregnant, and so she sat in the stands, and I went to the sports information department, and I said, hey, I just wanted to let you know my wife's sitting in the stands. I wonder if maybe she could sit up here and watch the game on TV. She doesn't even really like sports. And they said, oh, Lord, get her out of the stands now, and just handed me a credential as fast as I could because it was not safe.
Oh, wow. That's so funny.
And I go get her out of her seat, and she's sitting next to the guy that has a full cooler of beer. I don't know how he got it in, but a full cooler of beer in the Orange Bowl.
Oh my gosh, that is so
Like
crazy.
a rolly cooler. Like he had to have 24 beers. You don't need to drink 24 beers at a football game, do you?
I mean, please. How many people have we seen do that at SEC football games, guys? Come on now. Like,
we've seen a couple. So
but all I'm saying is,
yes.
Yes, I'd rather be a 2 or a 3 seed closer to home and have my fans fill the stadium. Home court advantage, you have to acknowledge it makes a huge difference. It probably makes a bigger difference in college basketball than any other sport.
Let me ask you a question. If they're a number 1 seed, will they hang a banner? Should they hang a banner?
No.
Yes, they should.
No. Wow. Some selection committee put the number 1 by your name. Yay! It's not like you're number.
The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. I think I made Caleb sick. In 2 minutes, we're going to get into who's the Vols' biggest star on campus. Go ahead, if you want to set that up as a poll question, we'll do that. That'll be coming up. Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Again, we're represented by Banks & Jones as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we're still trying to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7.
Here we go. It was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Thank you, Steve. Like and subscribe. Do that. Go ahead and join the channel for just $4.99 a month. And you will receive that welcome gift from Hound Dogs of Knoxville, which will be a gift certificate. Plus, you can use the promo code HOOKED to get 10% off. Did you ever find that the post there where people can know how to get in touch with us there? Any luck there?
No,
What are you, Caleb?
I'm sorry. I'm losing my mind, guys. I promise I'll get this set up.
I got it. I'm a little disappointed, but I got it. So if
I'm
you
the boomer today.
Yeah, you are. I don't know how to get it though. How do I get it to the people? Okay,
Just drop the link. Just okay. Send me the link in the private chat, like copy and paste it, send it to me in the private chat, and then I'll put it on the message board.
Okay. I feel like this could have been better prepared for.
Possibly.
This is where I'm going to leave that. All right, there it goes.
Okay.
So if you've been a paid member of either the Patreon group, which is no more, or you're going to be eligible, or you're just a paid member for $4.99 a month, you're going to be eligible for our weekly prizes. Plus, you're automatically going to get a Hound Dogs gift certificate. Just you're getting it, and we're going to pull for that John Henderson mini autographed helmet that becoming a classic the longer it takes us. He had dynasties. Isn't that enough, Dave? Yes.
Before we move on, I think we forgot. I wanted to show this super chat because Timothy dropping the big bucks today. A $50 super chat right here.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, really appreciate that, Timothy. Love all your support. But he's talking about Heupel's offensive scheme. LOL at his offensive scheme. It's a Big 12 offense, not SEC, and with the boring sideline to sideline passing and Hail Mary passing with the run, SEC can tear it apart, but sometimes players has to adapt with what the defense is giving them. So I guess you're saying the way that Heupel works the sidelines, SEC defenses are too fast to not be able to handle that. That's an interesting question, Dave. Do you think now that they know what they know about it, that the SEC has the fast enough cornerbacks to be able to handle those sideline to sideline plays that Josh Heupel does, so they can go back to disguising blitzes?
I don't know that you want them necessarily fast as you want them physical. If you look at Cedric Tillman, Brew McCoy, what we thought Dante Thornton would be, those are big receivers that are going to be tough to keep on the line. I mean, I thought Georgia, the year that was it 2022, that everybody thought that Tennessee was just going to go down and dog walk the dogs in Athens, and that didn't work out. And that was one where Eric Ainge made everybody mad. But I thought it was the physicalness of their corners that was the difference in the game, not the speed.
Yeah, you're right. That game that Kirby Smart left his corners on an island, and he said, "Do what you do."
Yeah, and they played hard. And listen, you're in a position. You talk about being dynastic. You're in a position where you're going to get the benefit of the doubt on a lot of those calls. So probably some of those were defense pass interference or defensive holding closer to the line of scrimmage. But you get those calls. If you're successful, you win championships. And don't think Tony Botello is not going to get some calls this year because they have a championship.
I agree with that. That's a very good point. I totally agree. And you're right. Also, because it's such a timing offense with the right reads, you knock them off and jam them at the line and knock their timing off. And if you can do it, I mean, it's really, really, really hard for the offense to get going. And then they can disguise blitzes in the middle because Tennessee needs to work the middle of the field. You can disguise it with your linebackers and things like that. And so, yeah, I think you're right. That's the big thing. And the SEC has the physical and athletic cornerbacks that can do those things.
It's hot or cold now, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. It is time to get your unit serviced so that it doesn't freeze up or burn up when it gets in extreme temperatures. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. cityheatandair.com. I don't know why this is playing from the middle, Caleb. Why is that playing from the middle?
I don't know.
My goodness. Say something interesting. Let's go to Adams. Man, it's my new element. I want to play that. Kirby teaches his cornerbacks to hold and make the officials beat them. The officials never do their jobs well enough to overcome the holding. I'll tell you the secret behind it is if you watch this, Nick Saban's teams figured this out. And it was just, you can hold and you can manhandle people. If you're on our video platform, you can see my hands. But you just can't do it above the elbow. And you definitely can't do it above the shoulder. But you can guide people. You can put your hand on their hip. And we dip, you dip, we dip.
I know exactly what you're referring to. Well, here's the thing. That is true. But also, that's not just with defensive backs. I'll tell you, I'm a Titans fan. When Jeff Fisher and Jim Schwartz had that Titans defensive line back in the day with Albert Hainsworth leading it, they taught the linemen to jump off sides every time, just try to beat the snap and not get called.
Yep. Hot or cold.
Yeah.
Oh, so. Go ahead.
And then Lane Kiffin once said, his exact quote, he said in an interview one time, he said, the really good offensive linemen are always moving before the ball snaps. They just don't get called.
It's very true. Exactly. Just watch Line, watch the box and you'll see it.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. CityHeatandAir.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
Hot or cold? A Lady Vol should be named the star on campus. If they do those Vol scars or whatever they do, where they give out awards and it sounds like they're scarring their players. But if they do that, that's what they call it, like the Oscars, Volskers. A Lady Vol should win that award, given what we have seen in this past calendar year. And I'm even including, I guess, the baseball team. Who's the superstar on campus right now? Because it ain't Nico and it ain't Josh Heupel. It might just be a Lady Vol.
It might. And now you brought this up, and Dave's got a great column on it recently because we're talking about Jewel Spear and Talisha Cooper, who have been balling for the Lady Vols. And I tried to think because, okay, going to baseball, like baseball is going to create some stars, but they don't have any right now because all the stars they had left from last year. So they're pretty much empty. Football's biggest stars from last year's team were Dylan Sampson and James Pierce. Guess what? They're gone. They're not on the team anymore. Cooper Mays is gone. So with that in mind, in terms of the...
I think the only really debate is maybe Zakai Ziegler. Because the other three guys that came in, and Igor and Chaz and Dubar, have not lived up to the billing. So I really think that it can't be Nico with the way the season ended. It can't be any football player, in my opinion. I think this comes down to Ziegler and name a Lady Vol.
Yeah, Ziegler or Spear or Cooper. How about this? How about the combination of Ziegler and Lanier or Jewel Spear and Talisha Cooper? Like in that moment, the biggest stars probably should be Jewel Spear and Talisha Cooper. They're more reliable regularly. Chaz Lanier is averaging 17.5 points a game, but if you guys have watched him play this year, that's a lot of Heupel level stat padding. And when I say Heupel level stat padding, I mean Heupel pad stats against really bad teams in non-conference play.
Okay, let's go through the names and let's put it on our poll question. And we're going to tell you whether they're hot or cold right now. And it's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
All right, Caleb, I'm going to start. Nico Iamaleava. It's cold.
It's cold. I don't think he's as exciting on campus right now.
I don't think when he goes to class, if they go to class anymore, I don't think it's anything like last year. And they're like, man, we can't wait for you to be a star. Now it's more like, is he going to pan out? Hunter Inslee. Oh, he's hot.
I'm hot on Hunter Inslee. That's a good one. You think he's hot, huh?
So hot.
So hot.
Zakai Ziegler.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Zakai Ziegler's hot on campus because people just love the way he plays. Zakai Ziegler is the one person that has a license to make 17, he could have 17 turnovers and 20 missed shots in a game, and fans are like, look at all the other stuff he does. Like, he gets forgiven for so much because of how hard he plays.
Don't forget to hit that like button, vote on our question. So who now is the hottest Vol on campus? Is it Inslee? Is it one of the Lady Vols? Is it Ziegler? I don't know that it could be anybody on the football team.
Let's do that. Hold on. And I'm gonna write in parentheses it's not Nico, so I'm not giving anybody the option to select Nico. Who is the hottest?
Well, why wouldn't you?
Because people would pick Nico and they're just wrong.
I don't know that they would. I think that's interesting. If Nico gets 20% of the vote instead of 80 like he would have gotten this time last year, to me that's newsworthy. Let's include
this. Ziegler / Lanier. We'll do that. Nico Iamaleava, Hunter Inslee. Because that's a good one. Hunter Inslee, Jewel Spear, or how about, Jewel, Spear / Talasia
It's
Cooper.
gotten really complicated all of a sudden.
No, it hasn't. I've actually done pretty good.
Okay, vote now. It's on our YouTube page. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do that. Brought to you in part by Joe Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. And who would you vote for?
Jewel Spear, Talasia Cooper. I would
too.
Jewel Spear is a red hot 3-point shooter. She stayed after she almost transferred last year, and then she stayed. Kim Caldwell convinced her to stay. And then they added Talasia Cooper from South Carolina after missing all of last year. And they've been a great 1-2 punch as guards, both of them. And she's just been a deadly threat from the field shooting. And so, I'm going Jewel Spear, Talasia Cooper.
I thought it was pretty interesting how efficient she was too.
Yeah, I agree. She's incredible. And funny enough, Kim Caldwell needs more efficient scores. So Jewel Spear is the only player that really fits her profile of what she wants, like to a 100% T. Now, Talasia Cooper's her best scorer right now, but that's more transition, things like that. If Talasia Cooper, here's the scary part about Talasia Cooper. She's shooting 26% from three right now because she's not a 3-point shooter, but she's only a sophomore and she's coming off an injury where she didn't play last year. What if she gets that 3-point shooting to just say 31%? Not 26, but 31. You're talking about an unstoppable force at All-American.
But when you compare any of the ball handlers that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but any of the ball handlers that the Lady Vols have, don't you feel like you could go to them and say, man, tonight's the night, I got to have 28 points. Whereas if you did that with Sakai Ziegler, that he'd probably get a little spastic and turn the ball over too much.
I don't know if Zakai would turn the ball over too much. I think actually part of the problem with the reason Zakai turns it over too much is Zakai too often is trying to look for the right person to be open, and the other players are taking themselves out of the game. Whether it be Chaz Lanier camping out in the back corner of the 3-point line.
He loves doing that, by the way.
He loves doing it. I know.
He loves it. I mean, it should be the Chaz spot on the Summit Court in Thompson Bowling Arena, brought to you by Food City Kroger's. That's
exactly so true. And this is why analytics sometimes are hard to measure in basketball because, again, I've told you guys, I one time said like Allen Iverson, and I'm taking this back now. You say AI was overrated because the shooting percentage was so low, but then I listened to him on the podcast and he said it right. He said, if I pass the ball to Eric Snow and he passes it to the Kemba Mutombo and he passes it to Aaron McKee and they all pass up open shots and then it lands back in my hands with 3 seconds on the shot clock, well, I got to take a bad percentage shot because what else am I supposed to do? That's what Chaz Lanier, that's what Zakai Ziegler is forced with a lot of times because players like Chaz Lanier, Darlington Dubois off the bench, they're taking themselves out of the game sometimes.
Yeah, but that's so disappointing though, because it's one thing if you've got an Allen Iverson. No offense to Zakai Ziegler, but he's not on that level. I mean, it's if you want to lean on an Allen Iverson because you're Eric Snow and you know your percentage of doing something good is not as high as that guy, AI, then I'm okay with giving the ball up. But Chaz Lanier should think to himself, I can create points every bit as much as the 5'9" guy. I'm not getting it back.
You are right. You are right. I went from saying Chaz Lanier is amazing to eating crow. You know who he reminds me of more than anybody? Here's a name for you, Dave.
Oh.
Scooter McFadden.
Why would you do that to the poor guy?
Okay. There was an NIT game, and you'll love this. It was an NIT game where Tennessee lost to George Mason 57-55, I think, during the Buzz Peterson years. Tennessee needed a 3. Maybe it was 58-55. Yeah, they needed a 3 to tie. There were 20 seconds left on the shot clock. Time ran out because nobody took a shot.
That sounds like a Tennessee football quarterback tradition.
Yeah, but it was basketball because Scooter McFadden kept passing up the potential game-tying 3, and he would keep they kept giving him the ball, and he would keep passing it up to somebody else. And I mean, it was a bad look at that time. And I'm starting to see that with Chaz Lanier. Hence the reason, Barnes, Dave, when is a scoring guard? When have you ever heard of a scoring guard being taken out of the game by a coach because he didn't score when he was told to?
Oh, Tony Harris.
Oh, Tony Harris. Well, Tony Harris was a natural point guard, though.
Well, but the problem was they would go into a season or a series or a month and say, you're going to play the 1. And then the next month they would say, you're going to play the 2. The next month you're going to play the 1. And they moved him around so much. There were times that he was at the 2 that he wasn't taking, I didn't think, nearly enough shots, and he was kind of running the point from the 2. Does that make sense?
Right. So this is not his fault at all, what you're saying.
No, it was not his fault.
Right.
Absolutely not.
This is what Chaz Lanier is, purely a scorer. He is a scoring guard. Your coach says, we have drawn this play up for you. When you get the ball, go score, which is what you are, a scoring guard, and that's all you've been all year. And you pass it up. Have you ever heard of a scoring guard do that?
I'm going to have to go T. Harris, man. I mean, he dribbled the ball against that.
But you can't blame Tony Harris is what I'm saying.
Well, most symbolic of it, though, the Charlotte game, his final game, how long did he dribble at the top of the key before he decided to shoot it up and hit the bottom cushion of the backboard?
Tony Harris was not meant to be able to create for himself, though. So he didn't really know how to, because that's not what he was raised to do. He was raised to be a point guard and distribute.
I think we can both agree that during that era that the players weren't to blame for any of their shortcomings.
No, not at all.
That was all on Well,
I mean, I didn't. Yeah, you've illuminated me even more of Jerry Green than I realize. Golden parachute job, and
and the best still was the coach that I'm not going to tell you who it was because it was off the record, but I'll tell you sometime. But the coach who said we were all standing around and nobody was recording. We just asked him. We said, "What do you think about your chances of beating Tennessee? They've got a lot of talent." He goes, "Well, anytime the Silver Fox is on the sideline with his arms crossed, you got a chance."
Then you had Wade. You had some characters coaching Tennessee during that time, because you had Wade Houston, who, as you have informed me, did not bother to work at all. Just watched. What, did he just not care? Was he just happy to collect a check too?
Yes. Well, and he was kind of the recruiter at Kentucky, so I think he thought the talent would just fall in place, especially with his son. The best one, though, is Kevin O'Neal, and I'm not going to name the player, but when he decided he got mad at a player and he picked on him, and some of you know who it is, decided it was appropriate to call that player's girlfriend sounds like my last name.
Wow. Okay.
First 2 letters, and made him run the steps while he kept talking about his girlfriend.
That sounds like Kevin O'Neal, but also Kevin O'Neal.
And then he laid down. Here's the other thing he did. He laid down like he had been crucified underneath one of the baskets. He goes, "I bleep and quit. I bleep and quit. I can't take this anymore."
But he at least tried to coach, right?
Yes. He tried. He just didn't have the talent.
And then Buzz Peterson was everything but smart. But he was like a good guy, a good leader,
Michael Jordan's best friend.
Even
though we never saw him. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, and they are East Tennessee's largest volume dealer when it comes to Ford and Lincoln, so check them out. The Parkside location or Kingston Pike, you'll be glad you did. We've got a special announcement coming up with some Vols that are going to be signing some big-time memorabilia. Hang tight with me 2 minutes. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off Thug Sports.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
A guy with a lot of jobs, but this one is the most important.
This is not government work. As such, I treat it with care and attention.
Until someone else calls. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Can you imagine for a second? And people are debating Tony Harris, whether or not he was a scoring guard or point guard. Well, he was either a point guard that shot too much, or he was a scoring guard who didn't pass too much, or you know what I'm trying to say. But I still look at his career, and Caleb, the very first moment that Tennessee fans saw him. Have you heard this story?
No, I don't know the story.
Okay. You remember the Midnight Madness thing? I think like Duke and North Carolina, they still do it. Tennessee did it, and they had the guys running out there. Tony Harris, I want to say Hathaway. You could probably help me with that class. And this was their first time that
Isaiah Victor.
Yeah, Isaiah Victor, who I don't think he qualified, which is why Kevin O'Neal left, because they got Corey Green, the defensive tackle, to qualify with the same academics. Was Kevin O'Neal's argument, which they probably did look out for football over basketball. Isn't that what you're supposed to do if you're Doug Dickey?
Yeah. That's like when I don't know if you know this, when Adolph Rupp went to the Final Four Kentucky one year, the school bought him a new Cadillac or whatever car was a big fancy car from that time. I don't think it was Cadillac, but and then when Bear Bryant took Kentucky to the Sugar Bowl, they gave him a cigar box.
Go ahead and put that community tab in there so we can make sure that everybody gets their Hound Dogs prizes. If you join, you get an introductory prize. Just $4.99 a month, and you get a gift certificate to Hound Dogs. Use a promo code HOOK to get 10% off.
Wait, what's the Midnight Madness story?
Oh, sorry. Oh, so he runs out there, and the very first one, he's going to dunk it. And he obviously can jump high enough, right? But he's a smaller guy, so I could tell he was having trouble palming the ball. So he came down awkward and bruised his heel. And I remember I was with my buddy who was more, there were some people who are more basketball fans than football fans at Tennessee, because it is a big thing at Tennessee. He was one of the 20% or so that was really more into basketball. And I just remember him going, oh, bleep. And that kind of set the tone. And then his career ended with that famous shot against Charlotte where he managed to hit the bottom foam protector of the backboard. It's not easy to do.
No, he didn't have a great support system anywhere, though. For those who don't know the Tony Harris story, like he obviously had terrible coaching by Jerry Green, terrible leadership when he got there. But I don't know if you know this, when he was coming out of Memphis, his uncle was shopping him around everywhere. And him not committing to Memphis is one of the biggest things that got Larry Finch fired, the head coach at the time. But Larry Finch had taken over from a Dana Kirk program in the 80s that was on probation, and he wasn't going to cheat to get players. But look, I'm just going to say it. Tennessee at that time was Jerry Green was willing to let some boosters open up some checkbooks for some players.
Well, Jerry Green, Zach, were you over there when Jerry Green was over there? Or am I that much older than you? Zach?
I remember Jerry Green as the coach. I remember he got fired because he couldn't sell popcorn.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's also a great clip where he gets introduced as the University of Oregon and he forgets the school. He's like, I'm so proud to be the head coach at the University of, and you hear somebody in the background go, Oregon. And so that helped him out.
Was he drunk at the presser?
50-50. Zach at Sports Treasures right there on Broadway. A couple of things I want to talk to you about. You have a huge signing event on Saturday, and people need to make plans to join.
Yeah. Saturday is the Tops Rip Day event. So they like us to try to bring athletes in. We'll have things to do with cards there as well, packs. People can bring their cards in, trade, all that stuff. But we're going to have 6 UT players there, broken down in 2 sessions, an offensive and a defensive session. The morning from 11 to 1, you're going to have Peyton Lewis. Good chance to be starting running back next year. I know we had Dylan Sampson in last year. A lot of people kind of slept on him, and that worked out. So don't make the same mistake twice. I keep telling people. They're going to have Ethan Davis, tight end, which he's got the big boom potential, I think. And then Bennett Brady, he's a grad transfer coming in, special teams player. And then this afternoon session will be 2 to 4. Going to have Tyree West, probably one of your best returning defensive linemen, as well as Caleb Perry and John Slaughter. And that's afternoon session.
Pretty darn good group. Have you stood next to Peyton Lewis yet?
I have not yet.
I don't know how he'll run the football at college because we haven't seen enough of it yet. But you talk about a guy that, like John Chavis said, he's good off the hoof or coming off the bus. He looks like a heck of a football player.
Yeah. Him. I think we could have a pretty good Thunder and Lightning with him and drawing a blank kid from Carnes.
Deshaun Bishop.
Yeah, Deshaun Bishop. Yeah. Yep. I think we could have a nice little Thunder and Lightning back in the day, like the Titans did with Chris Johnson and Lindell White.
I like that. Now, tell me how the card pool things that are working that I see on Facebook and people need, and I'm going to sit down another round of invites to get a lot of people to follow you guys on Facebook. And that's the easiest way, Sports Treasures TN. But you do these card pools where people can be a part of that. They can be a part of that even if they're not at your store, right?
Yeah, we do. It's called the Chip Case. We've had it there for probably 6 or 7 years. We had somebody come in, a social media influencer from out west, came in, did a video on it, and it took off. So we brought it, decided to put it online, let everybody, whether they're here locally or not, do it. Pretty basic. You get 3 chip pools. Basically, I have a drawstring bag. It's got numbers on the poker chips. You get whatever the card is on that corresponding with that number. But then you get to pick your numbers. Let's say you pick number 40. You draw 40, you get a free pool. So it's a good fun way to chase some good some cards in there. Get some autographs, relics, things like that. Just kind of a good game of chance, I guess you should say, with sports cards.
Love it. Zach, again, I'm sending out the invite so more people will follow you guys, and it's easy. Facebook.com, Sports Treasures TN. Have a blessed rest of the day, and let's share some Jerry Green stories at some point.
Awesome. Sounds good. See you guys later.
Before Zach, you go.
Yeah.
Guess who Jerry Green was best friends with before he took the UNC Asheville job and helped him get the UNC Asheville job in '79?
I'm gonna guess Buzz Peterson.
No, Buzz Peterson. Roy Williams.
Nice.
They worked at Kansas together.
I was thinking he had a connection with a big time legendary coach, but I was a little when Jerry Green was there, and when Kevin O'Neill. Yeah, Kevin O'Neill. I remember those guys, but the big ones I remember are Jerry Green, then Buzz Peterson, and then rolling into Bruce. I was actually at Bruce's last game when he got smoked at the NCAA tournament. I was in college over in the Charlotte area, and I was paid $70. I couldn't even stay for the second game to watch Tennessee get their butts kicked and sitting at the top row of the arena. And that was the worst $70 I'd spent.
The worst
time.
Okay, have you gone to a lot of the NCAA tournament games?
I went to that one, and then I went when Tennessee was at. I was going to do it the run when Carson Edwards hit the shot in the corner.
Yeah,
I went to the first 2 rounds that year. My buddy drove up to Louisville for the Sweet 16 game, and then drove back that night. We would have gone back for the Elite 8.
I still remember the worst weekend was Tennessee beat Delaware 42-40, and then 2 days later got beat. I mean, literally that game put basketball back 20 years. And then they got beat by Southwestern Missouri State by 35 points. Does that sound right?
Probably, yeah.
I thought it was Illinois State, but
yeah.
Yes, that's actually how I went to Winthrop Undergrad. That's how I found them when they played Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. I was a junior, and they loft hit that corner 3, and they were giving stats about Winthrop, and they were like, Winthrop was 3-1 girls to guys, and I was like, there's a college for me.
Zach, I appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep,
and congratulations on the little one. My goodness, everybody's having babies, you and Caleb. Congratulations, Zach.
Yep, he'll be at work on Saturday.
Cool. That's awesome. We appreciate it. Again, Saturday. Anybody appreciate it. Again, Saturday is that big signing
Yeah, I think Peyton Lewis is the guy you definitely want to talk to. But I mean, there's a lot of guys there. We'll be there. We'll have some interviews for you over the weekend. Look forward to that. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.